Now I am going to introduce myself. I am Sri Duryodhanmeher, retired principal and retired reader in English, Gokul Parvati Rural College, Kuntara District, Sambalpur, State Odisha. My dear friends, as all of you know that I am teaching all of you all the prose pieces and poetry of Invitation 1. Now I am going to teach you a lesson on examination by Winston S. Churchill. Introduction of the writer. Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill was the Prime Minister of England twice, a noted statesman and orator. Churchill was also an officer in the British Army, a historian, a writer and an artist. He was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1953. At Harrow is an excerpt from chapter 2nd of Winston Churchill's autobiography, A Roving Commission, My Early Life. Warm up, unit first. Examinations for many are not a pleasant experience. The apprehension of not doing well makes even bright student anxious. Read the following unit of the text and note how the writer took his entrance examination to Harrow. Text. I had scarcely passed my 12th birthday when I entered the inhospitable regions of examinations, through which for the next 7 years I was destined to journey. These examinations were a great trial to me. The subjects which were dearest to the examiners were almost invariably those I fancied least. I would have liked to have been examined in history, poetry, and writing essays. The examiners, on the other hand, were partial to Latin and mathematics, and their will prevailed. Moreover, the questions which they asked on both these subjects were almost invariably those to which I was unable to suggest a satisfactory answer. I should have liked to be asked to say what I knew. They always tried to ask what I did not know. When I would have willingly displayed my knowledge, they sought to expose my ignorance. This sort of treatment had only one result. I did not do well in examinations. In other words, the writer of this prose piece says that he passed his 12th class and he entered into an inhospitable regions of examinations. For the next 7 years, he was destined to journey of examination in his life. Those examinations were a great trial and test on his part. The subjects which were dearest to the examiners were almost invariably those he imagined least. He would have liked to have been examined in the subjects like history, poetry, and writing essays. The examiners, on the other hand, were partial to Latin and mathematics. And those teachers prevailed this view. Moreover, the question which they asked on both of these subjects were almost invariably those to which he was unable to suggest a satisfactory answer. So he was not able to give any sort of satisfactory answer of all these questions. He should have liked to be asked to what he knew. They always tried to ask what he did not know. When he would have willingly showed his knowledge, they exposed his ignorance. This sort of treatment had only one result, that he did not do well in all kinds of examinations. अर्थात लेखक जितेबाला द्वादश श्रेणी उत्तीर्ण हेले से एक अजना जगार पहुँचले जो ठारे कि विभिन्न प्रकार परीक्षा विभिन्न प्रकार विषय परीक्षा गुड़िक अनुष्ठित होउथला। तार परवर्ती 7 वर्ष परे से यही यात्रा को अब्याहत रखिले। यही परीक्षा गुड़ाक तांको पाई गोटे परीक्षा बा टेस्ट स्वरूप थिला। जो विषय गुड़िक तांकर आदृत थिला बा जो विषय गुड़ाक से भल पाउथिले यथा इतिहास कविता गुड़िक एवं रचना लिखिबार प्रणाली जो शिक्षक माने लेखकों को परीक्षा कराउथिले से गुड़िक से विषय गुड़िक है लाटिन भाषा एवं गणित एवं तांकर अनुसारे तांको मन अनुसारे से काम करते किए शिक्षक माने जहाँ भी होना कहीं जो प्रश्न गुड़िक तांको पचरा जाउथला से गुड़िक संतोषजनक थिला। से चाहूले जे तांकर शिक्षक माने तांको से प्रश्न गुड़िक पचारतु जो प्रश्न गुड़िक सहज थिला। से सदा सर्वदा तांकर ज्ञान को परिदर्शन करथिले देखाउथिले। सेमाने मध्य तांकर अज्ञानता मध्य प्रकाश करथिले। एही प्रकार चिकित्सा रो गुटे फल थिला जे से कौनसी प्रकार कौनसी परीक्षा गुड़िकरे भल मार्का बा नंबर रखु नथिले। This was especially true of my entrance examination to hero. The headmaster, Dr. Weldon, however, took a broad-minded view of my Latin prose. He showed discernment in judging my general ability. This was the more remarkable because I was found unable to answer a single question in the Latin paper. I wrote my name at the top of the page. I wrote down the number of the question first. After much reflection, I put a bracket around it in this way. But after that, I could not think of anything connected with it that was either relevant or true. Incidentally, there arrived from nowhere in particular a blot and several smudges. I gazed for 2 whole hours at this sad spectacle, and then merciful users collected my piece of foolscap with all the others and carried it up to the headmaster's table. It was from this slender indication of scholarship that Dr. Weldon drew the conclusion that I was worthy to pass into hero. It is very much to his credit. It showed that he was a man capable of looking beneath the surface of things, a man not dependent upon paper manifestation. I have always had the greatest regard for him. I mean to say that the author was going to face his entrance examination at Harrow. The headmaster, whose name was Dr. Weldon, was very broad-minded. He showed and judged the ability of the writer in a good manner. That was very wonderful because the author found unable to answer a single question in the Latin paper. He only wrote his name at the top of the page and he wrote down the number of the question first. After thinking a lot, he put a bracket around it. But after some time, he could not think of anything connected and related to it, which was true. Gradually, there arrived from some drops of water from his eyes. Anyhow, the writer wrote something on the foolscap paper and that was taken to the table of the headmaster. It was indicated that Dr. Weldon came to know that the writer had done well in the examination and it was the credit of the Dr. Weldon, the then headmaster, that he saw the paper beneath the surface of the table. That means he saw the paper internally and came to know that the author did well in the examination. In consequence of which decision, I was in due course placed in the third or lowest division of the fourth or bottom form. The names of the new boys were printed in the school list in alphabetical order, and as my correct name Spencer Churchill began with an S, I gained no more an advantage from the alphabet than from the wider sphere of letters. I was in fact only two from the bottom of the whole school, and these two, I regret to say, disappeared almost immediately through illness or some other cause. In other words, as a result, the author or writer was placed in the third position or lowest position in the fourth or bottom class. The names of the new boys were printed in the school list in alphabetical order, and as his correct name was Spencer Churchill, so his name started with an S. He gained no more advantage from the alphabet than from the wider sphere of letters. He was in fact only two from the bottom of the whole school, and these two, he regretted to say that he was somehow ill or for some other reason. मोर कहबार अर्थ यही लेखक तृतीय बा तल क्लास रो जगाटा नेले से समय जो नूतन पिला मानकर ना गुड़िक स्कूल रो तालिकार क्रमान्वय भाव बाहरी थिला देखागला जे लेखकंकर नाटा स्पेंसर चर्चिल भावरे थिला एवं स्पेंसर चर्चिल शब्दटा एस अक्षर आरंभ हेउथला फल लेखक किछि सुविधा पाइले किंतु से दुख प्रकाश करी कहले जे से ज्वर थिबा हेतु ज्वरान्वित हेबा नैतरु फल बा अन्य कारण फल भलिया हेला. The hero custom of calling the roll is different from that of Eton. At Eton, the boys stand in a cluster and lift their heads when their names are called. At Harrow, they file past a master in the schoolyard and answer one by one. My position was therefore revealed in its somewhat individuous humility. It was the year 1887. Lord Randolph Churchill had only just resigned his position as the leader of the House of Commons and Chancellor of the Exchequer, and he still towered in the forefront of politics. In consequence, large numbers of visitors of both sexes used to wait on the school steps in order to see me march by. And I frequently heard the irrelevant comment, why? Is the last of all? I mean to say that it was the custom of Haro that the style of calling the roll call was different from the Eton school. At Eton school, the boys would stand in a line and lifted their caps. But at Harrow, they went past in the school veranda and answered one by one. The position of the writer was showed in somewhat individuals humility or sameness. It was the year 1887. Lord Ralph Churchill was the leader of the House of Commons by that time, and a large number of visitors of both girls and boys, students, had to wait on the school veranda in order to see one by one passing, and that the writer had a very bad comment. Why? The writer was the last of all. अर्थात मोर कहबार अर्थ यही जेतेबेले लेखक हेरो हाईस्कूल पढ़ुले रोल कॉल करवाटा उपस्थान पकेबाटा गोटे अद्भुत ढंगर थिला, किंतु इटन रे अन्य धरण थिला। इटन हाईस्कूल रे छात्र छात्री माने गोटे लाइन रे छिड़ा होउतिले, तांगर मुंडर टोपी गुड़ाक ऊपर को काढ़ुले जेतबेले तांकर नाँ गुड़िक उपस्थान पका हेउथला। किंतु हेरो हाईस्कूल रे से माने जण पर जणे स्कूल बारंडा रे चलिए, अतिक्रम करेंगे लज्जार सहित। एटा 1887 मसीहा थिला। से समय जड़े विशिष्ट व्यक्ति लॉर्ड राल्डफ चर्चिल तांकर जो पोजिशन थिला, स्थान थिला, सेठारु से अब्याहत नहीं जाइथिले। से जड़े हाउस ऑफ कॉमन रो मुख्य बा विशिष्ट नेता थिले। से मध्य कंट्रोलर ऑफ एक्सचेकर रो चांसलर ऑफ एक्सचेकर रो मध्य जड़े विशिष्ट व्यक्ति थिले। से समय से व्यक्ति राजनीतिर आगर स्थान ग्रहण करथिले। फल अनेक दर्शक माने उभय पुरुष बा स्त्री हूँ ସେମାନେ ସ୍କୁଲ ବାରଣ୍ଡାରେ ବହୁତ ସମୟ ପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ ଅପେକ୍ଷା କରୁଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ଜଣେ ପରେ ଜଣେ ଗୋଟେ ଧାଡ଼ିରେ ଯାଉଥିଲେ। ଲେଖକ ଗୋଟେ ଖରାପ କମେଣ୍ଟ ବା ଇଙ୍ଗିତ ପାଇଲେ, କାହିଁ ସେ ତ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ଠାରୁ ଶେଷ ବାଳକ ଥିଲେ, ଅର୍ଥାତ୍ ସେ ତ ଗୋଧ ଛାତ୍ର ଥିଲେ। Unit second warm up. Think of the role of a teacher in a student's life. Doesn't a teacher facilitate the learning of a pupil and develop skill in him or her? Read the following text and note the role played by Mr. Somervell in the winter's education at Harrow. Text. I contributed in this unpretentious situation for nearly a year. However, by being so long in the lowest form, I gained an immense advantage over the cleverer boys. They all went on to learn Latin and Greek and splendid things like that, but I was taught English. We are considered such dunces that we could learn only English. Mr. Somervell, a most delightful man to whom my debt is great, was charged with the duty of teaching the stupidest boys the most disregarded thing, namely, to write mere English. He knew how to do it. He taught it as no one else had ever taught it. Not only did we learn English parsing through thoroughly, but we also practiced continually English analysis. Mr. Somervell had a system for his own. He took a fairly long sentence and broke it up into components by means of black, red, blue and green inks. Subject, verb, object, relative clauses, conditional clauses, conjunctive and disjunctive clauses. Each had its color and its bracket. It was a kind of drill. We did it almost daily. As I remained in the third, fourth, 3 times as long as anyone else, I had 3 times as much of it. I learned it thoroughly. Thus I got into my bones the essential structure of the ordinary English sentences, which is a noble thing. And when in after years my school fellows who had won prizes and distinction for writing such beautiful Latin poetry and pithy Greek epigram had to come down again to common English to earn their living or make their way. I didn't feel myself at any disadvantage. Naturally, I am biased in favor of boys learning English. I would make them all learn English, and then I would let the clever ones learn Latin as an honor and Greek as a treat. But the only thing I would whip them for would be for not knowing English. I would whip them hard for that. I mean to say that when the author was reading at Harrow High School, he kept on unpretentious situation in a year. By doing so, he placed the lowest form in the class. Then the cleverer boys. When all the boys except him were learning Latin and Greek and other things, he was learning English. They were considered such as dunces that they could learn only English. Mr. Somerville, a very cheerful and delightful person to whom the depth of the author was very great and high. And he was charged with the duty of teaching the students was the most subject called English. He also knew how to do it. He taught it in a very beautiful way and beautiful style. He would write all the things in a beautiful way on the blackboard. He would write in black, red, blue and green color. He was also teaching grammar like subject, object, verb, relative clauses, conditional clauses, conjunction, disjunction, etc. and etc. As he was in the fourth class, he had 3 times as much of that. Whatever he was learning very thoroughly. In this way, he got his bones the essential structure of ordinary British English, which was a very good and noble thing by that time. And when in latter years, his school fellows or all his classmates who won prizes and distinction for writing such beautiful Latin poetry and pithy or short Greek epigram, he was writing the common English. He did not feel himself any sort of disadvantage or minus point. Gradually or naturally, he was biased in favor of boys learning English. He supported those boys who loved English. He would make them learn English. He would let the clever boys to learn Latin as an honor and Greek as a good subject. But only thing he would whip or punish for knowing English, those boys who did not learn English were punished humanly by the author. Unit 3, warm up. Aren't students at school fun loving? Do young students play pranks with their school fellows? Read the following unit of the text and note how the writer describes a funny incident he was involved with at school. Text. I first went to Horo in the summer term. The school possessed the biggest swimming bath I had ever seen. It was more like the bend of a river than a bath, and it had two bridges across it. Thither we used to repair for hours at a time and pass between our dips eating enormous buns on the hot asphalt margin. Naturally, it was a naturally it was a good joke to come up behind some naked friend or even enemy and push him in. I made quite a habit of this with boys of my own size or less. One day when I had been no more than a month in the school, I saw a boy standing in a meditative posture, wrapped in a towel on the very brink. He was no bigger than I, so I thought him fair game. Coming stealthily behind, I pushed him in, holding onto his towel out of humanity, so that it should not get wet. I was startled to see a furious man emerge from the foam and a being evidently of enormous strength making its way by fierce stroke to the shore. I fled, but in vain. Swift as the wind, my pursuer overtook me, seized me in a ferocious grip and hurled me into the deepest part of the pool. I mean to say that when the author was reading at Harrow High School in the summer, the school had a biggest beautiful swimming bath which the author had not seen in his life. It was more like the bend of a river than a bath, and it had two bridges over it. There, all the boys used to repair for hours at a time and bask under the sun of the sky, and they were eating buns and basking on hot asphalt margin. Naturally, it was a good joke on the part of the author who looked a naked boy standing in front of him. One day it so happened that when the author was in the school in his first month, he saw a boy standing at the brim of the river or swimming pool in a meditative and silent posture, covered with a towel. He was bigger than the author. So the author thought it as a fair game. He wanted to joke with the boy so that he would get wet by the towel. The author was surprised to see a furious and horrible face coming out of the foam of the swimming pool. The author fled away, but it was in no vain. As the author was going after the boy caught him in a horrible position and threw the author into the deepest part of the swimming pool. मोर कहबार अर्थ ये जेतेबेले लेखक हैरो हाई स्कूल रे पढ़ुतले ग्रीष्म समय थिला स्कूल रो गुटे विराट गाधुआ पोखरी थिला से पोखरीटा एते लंबा थिला जे गोटे नदीर बांक भलिया कोण भलिया जना पड़ुथला से स्विमिंग पूल उपरे दीटा ब्रिज थिला सेठारे से घंटा घंटा समय पर्यंत खरारे रोथले शरीर को टिके गरम करने सकाशे एवं विभिन्न प्रकार खाद्य पदार्थ से खाऊले से गोटे मजा काम कले एकदा तांकर बंधु एकुटिया गोटे ओदा टावेल पिंधिकी स्विमिंग पूल रो उपरे बा पाखरे छिड़ा होते से बालकटी लेखक ठारू बड़ नथिले अर्थात छोट थिले गेड़ा थिले लेखक भाविले चिंता कले एटा गोटे तो भल मजा खेल हेबो लुचि लुचि से पिला पाखक गले टावेलटा को टाणिले जा फल से ओदा हो लेखक आश्चर्यित होकर देखले जे गोटे भयंकर मूर्ति पानी भितर पदा को बाहरी आसुची से भय दौड़ी दौड़ी पलैले से जिते पलाउले पछे से घोड़ा भाया द्रुत गति कोदौला गोड़ौला धरी पकेला लेखकों को एवं स्विमिंग पूल रो दूर भीतर को पानी भीतर को ठेलीदेला I soon scrambled out on the other side and found myself surrounded by an agitated crowd of young boys. You are in for it, they said. Do you know what you have done? It is Amari. He is in the 6th form. He is head of the house. He is champion of gym. He has got his football colors. They continue to recount his many titles to fame and reverence and to dilate upon the awful retribution that would fall upon me. I was convulsed not only with terror but with the guilt of sacrilege. How could I tell this rank when he was in a bath towel and so small? I determined to apologize immediately. I approached the potentate in lively trepidation. I am very sorry, I said. I mistook you for a 4th form boy. You are so small. He did not seem at all placated by this, so I added in a most brilliant recovery. My father, who is a great man, is also small. At this he laughed, and after some general remarks about my cheek and how I had better be careful in the future, signified that the incident was closed. I mean to say that when the author was reading at High School of Harrow, name of a place in England. He came to know that he was immediately surrounded by, garroted by an angry crowd of young boys around him. They all of them said, "You are for it. Do you know what you have done?" It was Omari. He was in the 6th class. He is the leader of the hostel. He was champion of gymnastic event or game. He had his football color. They continue to praise his many things, to fame and reverence, and to dilate upon the awful result that would fall upon him. He was convulsed not only with fear but also with the guilt of sacrilege. The author tells that he was in a rank when he was in a bath towel and so small. The author was determined to apologize immediately. Before him, he went near the boy with a sort of trepidation or fear or thrilling. He said he was sorry. He also could realize his mistake in his heart, and he thought that boy reading in 4th class. The author talked or said in a placated manner to that boy. He said that his father also was a great man, but he was very short in size and small in size. When he said so, the boy, Omari, started laughing. And he thought he would do very good things in future years. And there the event was closed. मोर कहबार अर्थ ये जेतबेले लेखक हेरो हाई स्कूल रे पढ़ुथिले एवं से जेतबेले गाधुथिले हठात से देखिले तांको चारिपटरे अनेक बालक घेरी ସେମାନେ ସମସ୍ତ ପଚାରିଲେ ଏଥିପାଇଁ ତୁ ଆସିଛୁ ଏଇ ହେରୋ ହାଇ ସ୍କୁଲକୁ, ତୁମେ ଜାଣିଛ କ'ଣ ତୁମେ କଲ? ସେମାନେ କହିଲେ ଏଟା ଅମରୀ, ଏ ପିଲାଟିର ନାଁ ହେଉଛି ଅମରୀ। ସେ ପ୍ରକୃତିରେ 6 ଶ୍ରେଣୀ ପଢୁଛି। ସେ ହେଉଛି ହଷ୍ଟେଲର ଜଣେ ମୁଖ୍ୟ ବାଳକ। ସେ ଜିମ୍ ଖେଳରେ ଧୁରନ୍ଧର। ସେମାନେ ପ୍ରଶଂସା କଲେ। ତାପରେ ଲେଖକ ତାଙ୍କ ପାଖକୁ ଲଜ୍ଜିତ ଭାବରେ ଆସିଲେ। ସେ ଥରେ ଥରେ ଆସିଲେ। ସେ କହିଲେ ସେ ବହୁତ ଦୁଃଖିତ, ମୁଁ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ ଭୁଲ କରିଦେଇଛି। ସେ ପୁଣି କହିଲେ ତାଙ୍କର ବାପା ଯିଏକି ଗୋଟେ ବିଶିଷ୍ଟ ବ୍ୟକ୍ତି ଥିଲେ, ସେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଛୋଟ ଥିଲେ ବା ଗେଡ଼ା ଥିଲେ। ଛୋଟିଆ ବାଳକ ଥିଲେ। ଏ କଥା ଯେତେବେଳେ ସେ ଅମେରୀ ଶୁଣିଲା ସେ ହସରେ ଫାଟି ଉଠିଲା ଏବଂ ସେଦିନ এই ଘଟଣାଟି ସମସ୍ତ ଦିନ ପାଇଁ ସବୁଦିନ ସକାଶେ ବନ୍ଦ ହୋଇଗଲା। Unit 4th. Isn't preparation for an examination very much painstaking? Children adopt many peculiar ways to face the examination. Read the following unit of text and note how the writer makes his preparation for the preliminary examination for the army. Text. I have been fortunate to see a good deal more of him in times when 3 years difference in age is not so important as it is at high school. We were afterwards to be cabinet colleagues for a good many years. It was thought incongruous that while I apparently stagnated in the lowest form, I should gain a prize open to the whole school for reciting to the headmaster 1200 lines of Macaulay's Age of Ancient Rome without making a single mistake. I also succeeded in passing the preliminary examination for the army while still almost at the bottom of the school. In other words, the author means to say that he was very fortunate and for the next 3 years it was very important for him at the school. Later on they were cabinet colleagues for many years. It was thought that while he was clearly stagnated in the lowest form, he should get a prize open to the whole school for reciting to the headmaster 1200 lines of Macaulay's Age of Ancient Rome, which was a long poem by that time, without making a single or one mistake. He also succeeded in passing the prelim exam for the army, still almost at the bottom of the school. अर्थात मोर कहबार माने यही कि जे से जो हेरो हाई स्कूल रे पढ़ुले अध्ययन करते से निजको भाग्यवान भाविले एवं परवर्ती किसी वर्ष पर समस्ते सांग हेले अनेक वर्ष पर्यंत थोड़े भाया है जे थोड़े ए भाया है जे से जिते बेले माकालेंकर लेज ऑफ एंशिएंट रोम गोटे विराट एवं लंबा कविता आवृत्ति कले बिना भूल रे एक स्वर रे आवृत कले से मध्य प्राथमिक परीक्षा उत्तीर्ण हेले। This examination seemed to have called forth a very special effort on my part, for many boys far above me in the school failed in it. I also had a piece of good luck. We knew that among other questions we should be asked to draw from memory a map of some country or other. The night before, by the way of final preparation, I put the names of all the maps in the atlas into a hat and drew out New Zealand. I applied my good memory to the geography of that dominion. Sure enough, the first question in the paper was draw a map of New Zealand. This was what is called at Monte Carlo an plan, and I thought I ought to have been paid 35 times my stake. However, I certainly got paid very high marks for my paper. I mean to say that when he was appearing examination, it was found that many boys failed in the school in the papers, many papers. But he had a good luck. He passed all examination papers. It so happened that one time he had to draw the map of any country. According to Atlas map, he had to draw the map of a country called New Zealand. He thought before night that how he could draw the map of New Zealand the next day in the exam. But on the next day in exam, he drew the map of New Zealand, name of a country, very beautifully and passed and got high marks, good marks in his paper. This is for all for the day. For now, thanking you all, my friends and dear